Well, with dating, I am looking for a husband because in the next chapter of like next 5 years, I'm creating a family, which I can take care of as much as I love taking care of my colleagues and my friends and the parties I throw, etc. In the meanwhile, I'm creating a very loving and connected family and friend experience worldwide while having an independent me at work and independent me outside of work, exploring, yeah, step by step, what would I be doing if it's not like we got this. I'm already like financially independent, etc. So what do we do next if it's not whatever I think my family thinks I should do next, but really what do I want to do next?
Welcome to the Worth It podcast. I'm Megan Taylor, coach for the brilliant minds and the rare ones who are always growing. I have helped ambitious women and men, business owners and leaders from around the world with defining and expanding their unique work, having the relationship that they actually want, and creating the life that makes all of the work feel worth it. Every week on the podcast, we discuss the key pivots that I coach my clients on and the real work required in order to be a leader and the woman or the man that you're here to be. With that, let's get started. Tali and I worked together for 3 months, and in that time, we uncovered the core pattern that was showing up at her work, in her love life, with her family, and basically in every corner of her life. It was keeping her living a life that was 2 sizes too small. She hired me at a time that she knew that as an engineer at a tech startup, she wanted to make a bigger impact through her work. But at the same time, she was really dragging her feet getting to work in the morning. She was feeling overwhelmed by having so much work on her plate that she wasn't able to really do the work that she wanted to do. We fixed that. And she also knew that she wanted to get back into dating. She had been on a dry spell from dating for over a year and wanted to date, but was feeling a little intimidated and a little bit self-conscious, including some self-consciousness about her body. And so we talk about what does it really look like for her to step into being the woman that she really knew that she was here to be, both as a leader at work and also thriving as a beautiful grown woman who got back into the dating scene and now has men who are inviting her for dates, making plans, and her whole situation and dynamic has turned around where before she was really seeking validation and approval at work, in love, with her family. And she's really flipped that around to start really listening to herself and what she actually wants and creating the life of her dreams. And everybody around her is responding in a new way. Check it out. You're going to love this episode. Okay. Hello. Welcome back to the Worth It podcast. I have a very special guest, my dear client, Tali. Tali, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So it's kind of a funny thing. You see me super dark over here because it's 8:00 a.m. in Idaho. It's definitely fall weather. And Tali is actually in Germany right now.
And it's 4 p.m. over here.
So yeah, I work with clients all over the world, and a lot of my clients really enjoy traveling as well. I'm so excited about your trip. Tali is currently working over there in Germany for a period of time. What made you want to get support with coaching in the first place? Like, what made you say, yeah, I think Megan's somebody who can help me? What were you working on at the time in terms of wanting to make shifts in your life and in your work?
It was definitely a desire for something to change, and knowing that if I just stick to my very busy schedule, doing all of my hobbies, like nothing about the stress I was experiencing at work or the stuckness I was experiencing in family, none of that would shift on its own. Like I really wanted external homework assignments and ideas and coaching on what to do differently. Okay, so Tali is just talking about her work, and I find that this is so common that, especially for folks who are entrepreneurs or who work in startup environments or in corporate, in kind of a high drive, high stress environment, the pressure around deadlines, as well as the reinforcement of getting kudos or getting accolades for the work that you're doing, it can become something that creates like a tunnel vision around doing a good job. And if you have any kind of conditioning around doing a good job, feeling useful,
being a good girl, things like this can become really common where you start feeling externally motivated around doing good work and you start losing touch with what it is that actually gives you life outside of work. And so a part of the work is just freeing up some new exploration of what puts life in your veins outside of work. And then we circle back and bring that into new clarity of the work that you're actually here to do. So we'll talk a little bit more about where this comes from. And Tally's going to talk next about what it's like for her, the way that she grew up, and how this influences the way that she thinks about work and how she should be showing up at work and in life on a day to day basis that actually keeps her limited until we actually break open that pattern and start finding a new relationship with work that is more healthy, more sustainable, and that also includes living a beautiful life outside of that. Let's listen.
Definitely working a lot. It's a really easy trap to fall into when work gives me so much purpose. And it does make a difference to my colleagues and our product when my project's complete. But if you're really pouring all this time into work, into purpose that is created by somebody else, it means you don't have an internal purpose that is lighting you up on your
Yeah.
own. And really noticing like not waking up in the morning until the last moment when I needed to go to work, and then being drained in the evening from, yeah, staying at work, long, um, not a very sustainable mode.
Mm. Can you say more about that? What do you mean about not sustainable?
Well, it's like, I think the reason I'm working long hours is that I get, um when I get the kudos from the people around me, it's like I am a contribution. People are aware of what I'm doing and they're grateful for it. But if I can't generate that for myself, like I can't go, on a walk, smell the roses and eat a croissant and sit there and be like, this is a productive part of my day. This is what I need to build up my energy, etc. Um, that
Yeah.
means I'm losing out on all of that, self acknowledgement. That's one aspect. And the other aspect is just, yeah, I really want to have things in life other than work that are inspiring me to take action, inspiring me to spend long hours doing something. It's like I really enjoy the spending creative energy this way, but it's like I want to have my own ways of
Yeah.
being creative.
So you were looking for a life outside of work. You were looking for a different rhythm of work. Like you love work. I'm that way too. I love working as well. But you were looking for something more sustainable and pleasureful and joyful and like enjoying
Yeah.
life.
Like something sometimes I don't feel like a 20 something year old. Like
Yeah.
there's maybe especially when I'm surrounded by people at my office who are older, but it's like, no, I don't yet have a family. I don't have to be responsible in that way. Like I actually do get to
Yeah.
enjoy and fool around. And my parents had actually been saying that straight up. They're like, you don't have to take this much responsibility, but I wasn't shifting my actions in any way just from them saying this.
Mm. What do you think was keeping you from making that shift?
Um, it is very, I think a realization I had at one point was I was actually trying to preserve the family unit the way it had been, which
Mhm.
was I was a daughter that can contribute to my parents, to my siblings in a certain way, and really not having the courage, like, because you are a contribution anywhere you go. So anytime I would show up in with like around family, I would be really clear. I would get a lot of signal of like, wow, when you cook or when you play board games with the younger siblings or etc. It's like you are so awesome, um, and really not having the courage to be like, when I'm on my own, it is also a contribution to family for me to like, I don't know, fill my energy, and bring back creative ideas like in a month or whatever, like have that delay between interactions. Um,
Absolutely. So, would you say it's something like you were getting a lot of acknowledgement from the family about your contribution and a lot of acknowledgement from work about your contribution, but at the same time, you weren't fully honoring, like, what you wanted or hadn't really fully explored that yet? Something like
100%.
that?
Yes. I think it was really hard for me to ever answer, what do I want?
Yeah. Yeah. So how do you solve for that? Or what did we do in coaching that helped you figure that out?
Well, the first month was really fun in that I basically literally just stayed away from my parents' house for a month. And it was a bit shocking for everyone involved. For me, I was like, okay, let's pretend I knew I had this Munich trip coming up and I was like, let's pretend I'm in Munich, but while I'm in Seattle. And like what actually happens if I stay at my house on the weekends and discover that there's a beach 10 minutes away that I didn't even know about, or
Yeah.
bake, or etc. It was like it was really freeing those were the first cases of actually being like, okay, I have a free day. What do I want to do right now if I don't have to produce anything at the end of it for somebody else?
Um,
Um, and after that, it's become like this question that I'm asking myself many times a day of, you know, if I'm sitting around the dinner table with family or friends, it's like, do I actually want to be here? Or are they entertaining themselves? Do I want to get up and be somewhere else because I don't like whatever reason, or actually do I want to call it early? Um, yeah, piecing up apart those external motivators of like there are people watching me or interacting with me, hence I must act for them versus I don't actually owe them anything and they don't owe me anything, but that implies that I can actually step away.
yeah, and honor yourself and fuel your energy and then have something more to bring back,
It's interesting. Yeah, it's definitely
right? Okay, so this is super important. This is really about differentiation. It's about learning how to be an individual and recognize that actually it's not your responsibility to make everybody happy. It's your responsibility to be honest and to create authentic relationships with those around you. And so this was a really important moment for Tali in terms of learning how to really learn what does it mean to be able to show up and be an authentic relationship while also honoring what it is that she wanted. And the ways that she did this within her family, this is what actually creates some of the deepest change that you will find rippling out into your work and into even your romantic life as well. When you begin to make shifts in the original system where you first learned about relating, that's where you start creating brand new relationship patterns. So, in this case, this is about learning how to differentiate and how to be her own independent and authentic self, which Tally had no lack of independence, but it was more about bringing in next levels of honesty and authenticity so that she could then also bring this to work and bring this into her romantic dating life as well. Well said.
exactly.
So the piece about the external motivation, I'm curious, how did that end up showing up in your dating life?
Well, I've had for a long time this pressure that like whoever I pick to date has to be not just perfect and I have to like them, but I have to be like proud of showing them to my parents.
Yeah.
And that kind of blocks a lot, not because my parents are stringent, but because my imagination of my parents, like the critical voice heard by the 5-year-old is very strong and probably much stronger actually than the way they really are as humans.
Right.
Um,
I get that.
so being comfortable with like, I like this human and that's enough is really
Yeah.
raw, really like,
Yeah. Not over analyzing it up here,
yeah.
but really feeling it in here, feeling it in your body, feeling where is the attraction.
Just being comfortable around them and not trying to figure out why or to what extent. Yeah, just kind of letting it be.
Yeah. So some of that I would call shifting out of analysis, like over analysis, um, really getting in tune with your feelings as a woman. I know we talked about that a bit. And,
I like
you
the
know, it's
difference between judgment and discernment.
yeah, that's a good lesson. I love that one. Can you say more about that?
To me, judgment is attaching a meaning on top of what you're discerning, which is there's a delta. Discernment is like, oh, you left your napkin out, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like that can be like, that's surprising. That's not something you would do in my culture. That's not how I was raised to have table manners, whatever. But the judgment is like, you're an awful person, or you're uncultured, or etc. versus like you forgot, or it doesn't really matter, or etc. Like there's a lot of different layers you could put on top of just basic
Mhm.
noticings of actions.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that makes so much sense because so much of the work I've been seeing you do, Tally, is just freeing yourself from judgment. And when we
Mm.
do that and lighten up on the judgment, we actually stop judging other people too. And then you're
Maybe.
free to discern without leading with so much fear. And so just looking at your dating life. So when we first started working together, you hadn't been dating for about a year or so,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And now you've gotten back out into the field and how's it going so far?
It's interesting. It's certainly diverse. I think the big thing when we started was I was feeling really insecure about my body, both how it looked and how I feel inside of it.
Yeah.
Even though I have like all this partner dancing background, that's not a being sexy background. It's more of a like physical using your body background.
Almost
Um
like being an athlete kind of, right?
yeah, so like being attractive, seeming attractive to myself and like having that idea that I could be attracted to somebody else. That's a surprisingly different path. I think different section.
Yeah, good point.
What was the question we came from?
We were just talking about how your dating life is going.
Oh, yeah, so comfort in like in my own body. Uh and then also like trusting my instincts or hormones because I was very afraid of like being infatuated with someone and then them leaving or vanishing or just not reciprocating.
Right.
And I think joining a dating app has been a fun kind of byway for all of that because it's the practice of meeting strangers and getting to kind of be free and be myself. It's as opposed to the baggage of finding someone like within existing communities.
Mm.
Um, and I get to be really selective about who I have conversations with or go on dates with. And so it's like there's a sense of ownership and control.
Mm. How's that been?
Surprisingly easy. There was like a glitch at the beginning when I wasn't filtering my guys right, but now it's like you kind of
Yeah,
figure out the ratio of people that you need to like start conversations with to then who are you actually going to meet up with.
yeah,
Um, and you get a lot better at discerning like we have shared interests. We're actually going to have something to talk about. Like you actually seem interesting to me versus you just happen to have a pretty face. Um,
yeah,
and yeah, you do the things. It's fun. It's kind of more lightweight than I ever had it be before.
beautiful. I love that. I love this part. So Tally is getting clearer on what it is that she's actually wanting in a partner. So she's recognizing it's about more than a pretty face. And she's really differentiating her preferences by focusing on what her values are. Tally's super smart. She loves to have a deep intellectual conversation. And so she recognizes that this is a part of what she's looking for. When she got on to online dating, even though she was having some self consciousness about her body, she quickly realized that it was not a deal breaker for the men that she was matching up with. Actually, they were finding her attractive. And the bigger problem became actually filtering the amount of interest that she was getting. So that was a really good problem to have. And so, since she has started differentiating her wants and what it is that she's really looking for in a partner, she's able to then filter through and figure out which kinds of conversations she's actually interested in having rather than entertaining every conversation. This also comes back and reapplies to how she was showing up at work, where she was entertaining every conversation and getting run over with work rather than setting boundaries and standards for herself around when she works. And so she was practicing this discernment and these standards in her dating life, but then also turning around and using this at work as well. So we can see how the pattern of learning how to raise standards, learning how to advocate for what you want, learning how to value and respect your time and yourself. These are things that translate into your work life as well as into your dating life as well. And how have things shifted at all with perceiving yourself as beautiful, attractive, and the body stuff?
It's become a lot easier. I think we did an exercise that I really liked about noticing what men give me,
Yeah,
uh, and the number of interactions and the number of the respect and also joy that people show when I walk into the room, the communities that I get to nurture, um, they really kind of shone the spotlight away from people caring so much what I look like, and more how I act and how I show up, the consistency, the presence, etc., with which I show up. Um, and that's just been really helpful. I'm definitely looking at myself in the mirror differently now. I think I'm also making it started a bit before, but I've definitely continued practicing like slightly different fashion choices, like actually weeding out the grays and blacks from my wardrobe and wearing things that I think are fun and exciting and flatter me.
yeah,
Um, yeah, I like that project.
I love that. Just playing with fashion a bit more and expressing yourself.
Hmm. And yeah, being really clear on like I want to wear things I'm comfortable in
Mhm.
and that flatter me, which means I can stick to my own style, which is often a little bit more classical,
Mhm.
or a little bit more European. And
Yeah,
it's like it's okay to look, I want to say weird, but to look different
yeah,
than other Seattle gals look if that's what I'm comfortable in.
yeah,
Um, that's been nice.
absolutely. Well, and your family's from Ukraine, right?
Hmm.
Yeah. Do you find that your fashion choices are influenced by where your family comes from?
Mm, not Ukraine or Israel specifically, but um,
Yeah, you said more
just
European.
generally having an awareness that there are other countries that don't dress as informally as like Seattle. Like athleisure is not actually the most beautiful thing that a human can wear, though it is very comfortable. And I was definitely in the camp that for many years, like that's what I would wear going out, and then moving to like
Yeah.
what are these small touches? Like I still don't wear makeup, for instance, and I really am happy that I'm in a profession where I don't have to do that. Um, but it's like allowing myself to and allowing myself to be a little bit more girly and to I love
Mm,
that I get to wear dresses and skirts to the office and wear colors, and it's like
I love
it's okay
that.
if I'm not wearing a polo shirt and jeans or whatever my
Yeah.
coworkers are wearing. It's like they still respect me. I still get to be an engineer.
Wow.
There's other ways to,
Yeah.
be really adamant about your ideas and your logic and etc.
Yeah. So let's go there. Let's talk about that. So, one of the things that you were looking to focus on was figuring out how to make a bigger impact in your field at the
Hmm.
time than when we first started, and also how to do that while also kind of burning at both ends and feeling a bit depleted. And so I imagine all the things that you've been doing in your life differently to prioritize what you want, to prioritize pleasure, to get back into dating, to start respecting your body and dressing in a way that honors you. All of those things bring a new energy, right?
Mhm.
Um, can you talk a little bit more about how have things shifted at work for you in the past few months?
I've become more of I've developed a sense of I am an expert on my team. It's like before the projects that I had driven had always occurred to me as like I happen to be the one that knows more about them at the moment versus like actually I'm the one who people ask questions about them. Like I really like I'm not going to get fired because it would for my company it would really be far too much effort to have somebody else figure out the things that I already know. And that's value. That's like that's just what I bring just by showing up. Is I know how stuff works. And then it was quite tough for me to take on about a month ago, probably discussions further started. I'm driving a pretty large project right now, and I'm collaborating on it here in Munich. There's a lot of parts of it that I don't know, and that I don't know how to tech lead, that I don't know how to design or build, but it's like I'm driving it. So there are other people helping me, and there's the sense of like I'm trusted to drive it. And there actually isn't the expectation that I do it all myself.
Can you talk
And
about the
that's pretty
expansion?
inspiring.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you share about your expansion of the team?
Yeah, I was sharing that when I was coming over here, so I've only been here for actually exactly 1 week. A neighboring team of like 3 to 5 people decided that the best way that they could move forward their project is actually by jumping over and helping me prototype my project. So my
Awesome.
team grew from like I'm driving this alone to like 2 people as we've gotten on really good terms with this other engineer, and then now I have basically 5, 6 people who are under my umbrella. They're all experts in different things. And the yesterday, like when this idea showed up of like, oh my gosh, we could help you, like one guy's eyes just lit up. He's like, I'm so excited to work on this. So it's really feeding what they're interested in. And
And you
I
said they're all like PhDs and stuff, right?
yeah, almost
Yeah.
all of them are RPGs. So
So
the fact that they want to work with me, in
yeah.
fact,
So
it's such
you're
an
like
honor.
yeah, so you're like this female engineer. You're in your 20s, right? Late
Hmm.
20s? Yeah.
27.
And you've got like a team of 6
Yeah,
reporting.
people who are going to collaborate with me. So there's really this hackathon energy of like,
Yeah,
this is
super
the
cool.
next most important thing. Let's figure out how to do it. Um, it's great.
So good. So you're getting new responsibilities. You're feeling better. You got a raise,
Mm-hmm.
which is awesome.
Yep, a couple months ago. It was
Yeah,
fun.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Good. Wow.
Um, yeah,
Tell me, I'm just I'm sorry, go ahead.
here getting like dinner and weekend planned invites and etc. And it's just it
Yeah.
doesn't feel like I'm alone.
Mm.
And that's a way of being, I think. What being moving around different spaces, whether it be dance socials or my landlady or whatever, and it's like being someone who other people want to invite with them.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful skill.
Yeah, something that I've seen you shift in the past 3 months has been you were somebody like as a doer and a lover and a giver, you have been somebody who's really gone out of your way to take care of things for others at work or make the invitations and right and set up like invite friends, to get
Mhm,
together
mhm.
and things like that. And something that's really shifted, which I think really started with you valuing yourself more is people have started turning around and inviting you, making plans for you, leading you, and you have become the receiver of the opportunities.
Like yesterday, the small example was Georg to cool off after me. He was like, "Let's go on a walk," and I'm like, "Great!" And he was planning it. And I just told him that I needed to be back in 50 minutes for my next meeting. And he was the one checking the time and like, leading me around being the tour guide.
Good
And it's
man.
like that's the masculinity you've spoken about, like when people show up that provide support and structure within which you can be fluid and creative. That was really lacking for,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. And so with the lack of leadership around you, what was that creating for you? Like, what was your experience with that?
In the past, I
Yeah.
mean, just really despondent
Yeah.
because
Good
I was
word.
always the one that had to herd cats. And then even once I would host the parties and people would say how amazing it was, like there would be no recurrence. People wouldn't turn around and invite me back. And it was just
Yeah.
pouring a lot of energy out for others, without the sense of it really filling my cup the same way.
Yeah. So great way of saying that. So what would you say that you needed to change or shift that actually kind of inverted that dynamic where people are now inviting you and men are inviting you and leading you and
First of all, I think if I am calm and present and enjoying myself, then I'm the kind of person that people want to have around them later. So it's just like if in the moment I'm kind of grooving, enjoying my own thing, when people interact with that, they're like, invitations are much more available because I'm not someone who's stressful to be around.
Mm,
Um, and
yeah.
another big thing has been starting to work on phrasing what I actually want.
Yeah.
So being saying, for instance, I have no weekend plans for the next 2 months. It's like that opens an invitation of people start getting ideas of like, wow, I could help you create a weekend plan. um,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think I'd practice that much, really making open-ended requests. I'm more the person who is like, I need you to do this, this, and this because I've put all this thought and effort into thinking of like, you might be compatible with being able to offer all these things, and these are exactly the parameters that I need. Versus the more open-ended, like, here's
Right.
the here's the need. Can you create this with me?
Yeah, exactly. So let me see if I'm getting it right. So it's kind of the difference between, okay, this is like a little bit plain way of saying it, but the difference between telling people what to do versus sharing what it is that you desire or would like and giving them an opportunity to bring an offering or a solution.
Hmm.
Yeah. And look at what's happening in your life, right? All of the offerings that are coming in at work in terms of help and support, um, and dates and plans. And it's just so much easier, isn't it? When you're just like not trying to manage and control the details yourself and getting all your needs met by yourself.
I think it's being open to state that you don't know how to do it or you don't
Yeah.
have it all figured out, and
Yeah.
really just saying that, instead of slaving away trying to get it worked out first before saying anything.
Uh,
It changes the conversation.
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So a lot of it is kind of, at least in my experience in my life, is like releasing the need to be perfect, releasing
Hmm.
the have it figured all out, and really being vulnerable about letting other people into the messy process.
Mm, I still need to work on that.
Well, and you have been, something about coaching is that it is vulnerable because we are kind of in the mess
Mm,
together, and it's about actually not knowing, allowing
yeah.
yourself to not know so that you can know something new. And it's actually very vulnerable doing that. But the fact that you've embraced that and shown up to coaching and doing the work, like you've been just a fantastic client to work with. The changes that you've made in every area in the last 3 months have been, I would say, fast paced.
Hmm,
And
gotcha.
a
It
lot of
was
that,
time. It was
yeah.
time.
And a lot of that is because um, you're really dropped in, you're really present, you're really willing to look at your patterns and like let it be okay that something that you've been doing is not working for you and to
Mm,
try something new, even if it's uncomfortable.
yeah. I remember there was one really uncomfortable assignment which you said like asked to give myself a vacation for 1 hour a day. And I just passed out about that for a week or two. I was like, I cannot just drop into vacation mode for an hour a day. But then, yeah,
Yeah,
turning that into like, okay, we are trying to tackle something that isn't working.
right.
What's a different way that that can look?
Because what was happening at the time? Do you remember why I assigned you that? Not
I was just
really.
like doing stuff all the time.
You were
I was
doing
just,
stuff all the time.
yeah.
You were doing stuff all the time. Yeah, whether it was working or like scrolling social media or doing something productive for someone else, doing like what you think you should be doing versus what you want to do. And so the invitation around vacation, I think it came from the fact that you had observed that whenever you were traveling, you would end
I
up
get to
kind
be
of going
different.
with the flow in vacation mode and doing what you want. So the question was, how do we bring vacation home and create that kind of mode where you could downshift from this like hyper like an elevated nervous system where you felt like you always needed to be doing and you couldn't really shut down. And so when you started, I know it took you a little bit, but when you started doing the hour-long vacations, what did you uncover that you like doing?
Cooking is a big thing that calms me down, cooking or baking.
Yeah,
Um,
love doing that.
Going on walks, allowing myself to just kind of stop when I was driving somewhere, driving home from work, for instance, stop and like just go on a walk in a park on my own that I had never explored on my own. Um, this is an important aspect of not just stating to others that I need help or don't know how to do something, but also be chill while staying in that state of not knowing how to do something.
Mm,
Um,
mm.
that's I think, very similar to the vacation mode of like, you're not doing something productive, you're actually having to go with the flow. And it's like, yeah, not just pretending to, as like a almost
Yeah,
an arrogant thing, being able to say to everyone, oh, I don't know how to do about this, but in the back of your mind being like trying to figure out how to do it. Said like actually being okay with that.
actually letting it go,
Yeah.
actually surrendering. Okay, so if you are a woman who is a leader, if you are a woman who is kind of type A and who tends to want to stay in control, and you know that you want to learn how to relax, doing something like partner dancing is an incredible way to start rewiring your nervous system to experience safety while co creating with another person. So, if you want to learn how to trust men more, if you want to learn how to feel safe as he is leading, partner dance is one of the best modalities that you can do to be able to start rewiring how you think and how you feel at a nervous system somatic level when it comes to partnering with men and allowing yourself to learn how to enjoy being led, how to enjoy following, and how to let him lead. When you do this, it's going to make it much easier for your man to lead you to rise into leadership or to attract a leader who wants to provide that kind of structure, that kind of support, and where the two of you get to co-create something beautiful together. It's not about surrendering your voice. You still stay in your center, you still stay in your power, but it's about letting him make some of the decisions and helping to create a beautiful experience for both of you. I know not all of my listeners are dancers like you and I are, but one of the things that I incorporate with my clients, including with you, is figuring out how do you take your hobbies and make that a practice ground for the types of mental and
Mm,
emotional and spiritual shifts that we're making. I
hmm
much prefer it doing it that way over. I mean, some people are really into journaling and meditation, but what I find is like if your focus and your energy are already obsessive about something that you're really into, it's a really great way to practice new ways of being in the world. So, can
hmm
we talk about dance a little bit as like a practice ground?
Sure.
Yeah, cool. So, I was reminded of that as we started talking about surrender. Um, Surrender is like one of those concepts that comes up. I mean, you could probably apply it to dance or even to, I don't know, people who ski or stuff like that. There's kind of this moment of like letting go of control and finding more flow within the dance and more connection as well is kind of
Mhm.
my experience. What's it like for you?
There's a very big difference between anticipating all the time or dancing with someone and covering for all of their mistakes and finishing the moves like as they're supposed to be versus how you want to move and interpreting the music how you want to interpret it versus doing what you want to do and inviting them into that collaboration and being like really open and creative with another human being. Um so surrender is somewhere between like surrender doesn't mean give up your own voice. It's have your voice but in a conversation with someone else.
Yeah.
And it means basically you don't have to be shouting all the time. It's like you don't have I don't have to be so afraid of losing myself that I have to be like on time, all on my own time all the time. It also
Mm,
yeah, it means I have to let in some trust for how my partner's going to lead me. Um, allow there
right.
to be mistakes and really trust them to take care of me. Allow like trust that they have good intentions. Um,
Wow.
this was a let's say well difficult and recurring thing that I'm really having to work on is bring back that trust that vanished over a couple instances. I think like harsh leading or injuries or etc. And working to
Yeah,
bring back that softness or allowing somebody to take my weight off my feet, etc. Like things that are making me really scared because I'm having to give up control and talking about it with my practice partners and working through it and
that's so powerful. Yeah,
yeah, allowing someone else to support me.
that's beautiful. So you mentioned a lot of really important kind of they're really like relational and intimacy topics. So
Mhm,
I want to just connect this for the people who are listening. So for those who don't know what partner dance is, there's a lot of different styles. You might think of ballroom, salsa, bachata, zouk. You do zouk and West Coast swing, right? And
mhm,
so imagine kind of dancing with the stars, and you have a lead and you have a follow. And one of the things that's incredible about partner dancing is that inside of that is a whole world that's a context about a relationship that happens. In this case, it's like it can be like a 3-minute, right, interaction. But in that, what we often uncover, and I know this in part from being a dance teacher, and doing this work, is that we can see the places where we have certain patterns or expectations around relationship. So one of the
mhm,
things that you uncovered through doing this work alongside being a partner dancer and really using it as a lens to look at yourself is one, like this fear of losing yourself inside of relationship.
mhm,
Looking at what does it mean to trust and allow somebody else to support you. What does
mhm.
it mean to vocalize? Did you say to share your fears? Was that what it was?
Yeah, speaking up about, either what I was working on or what was interesting to me or, really what I was resisting and having someone else help me get through that.
Yeah, that's powerful. You also talked about what does it mean to not compensate for your partner? Um,
Mm.
to like, can you talk about more about that? Like compensating for your partner. What do you mean by that?
In dance, very often when we're learning moves, when a lead starts something, you can already guess what they're going to do. If you know kind of their level, what moves they might know already, like there's a finite vocabulary until you get to the very advanced levels, at which point you really shouldn't have a clue what your partner is going to lead next. But with a lot of these like stamp kind of moves, if a lead doesn't actually lead them correctly or fully, then if you were actually to follow them, you might like lose momentum and stop when you're facing the other way. Or your feet might get all wonky and you might get off time. So compensating there is being like, okay, I know what you intended to lead. I'm going to do that. And it's a very polite and kind thing to do when you're dancing with a beginner, and you're kind of helping them out, encouraging them. But it takes a lot of the joy out of the creative process if you're doing this with an intermediate or advanced lead, because maybe they actually intended for you to face the other way. Maybe they
Yeah.
had an idea. Maybe it was musical or went with the lyrics. And it requires a different sort of awareness and teaching inside of our bodies to actually allow that wrongness to occur, something that you haven't experienced before, something that isn't choreographed,
Right.
and really allow the improvisation to take shape and be like, okay, I'm facing the wrong way. Like, oh, what's possible from here? Um,
Right. And you
and
open
that's
into
fun.
new possibilities with your partner.
Yeah. And it takes a partner who's willing to play this way, and it really swings the door open on,
Yeah.
yeah, what's
This is
possible.
so, so good. So take this and turn it towards dating life, right? And
Yep.
what you're now much more prepared for is like allowing a man to lead, allowing a man to also make decisions, not needing to control every moment, not
Mhm.
needing to look a particular way. And there's so much freedom when it comes to being in that kind of a dynamic where you don't need to be responsible for the whole thing.
Mm. Yeah, there's a lot of freedom in showing up also how I want to show up, of like the analogy there is if they heard a little thing in the music and they like did one isolation and I wanted to do another one and I did it, but
Yeah.
then we're like lined up at the end of those
Yeah.
couple beats, that's perfectly
That's
fine.
hot.
Like you don't have
Yeah,
to
it's so
sing in
fun.
unison all the time.
Yeah,
You have to be aware of what they're doing and like, you can kind of acknowledge it, but you don't even have to mimic it. It's like, no, thank you. I'm good.
yeah. So to your point, it's not about like shutting down your voice. You actually keep your expression, you keep your unique way of feeling the music, but you're in a conversation with
Hmm.
your partner.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what a healthy, sustainable relationship, like long-term relationship looks like, is
Hmm.
like being your authentic self, standing with both feet on the ground, being in your center, but then also interacting, playing, and co-creating with your partner and allowing him to invite you into different fun experiences as well.
And I'm just thinking back to like the social I went to on Tuesday. It's a Zouk social. So in Zouk, people typically don't do this, but people welcome me bringing this energy in. Like there's leads who don't quite know how to react to me not being in unison, but they smile. And then we pick up and like go back to the basic. So it's like folks
Being
are welcoming of this, even if they don't necessarily, it's not a picture perfect way to interact, but it's certainly a lot more interesting.
Yeah, and they appreciate your playfulness. And that might be a quality that you bring back to your discernment, as you said, of understanding what kind of partner is a good match for you. It would be somebody who can move with your playfulness, with your ideas as well, with your creativity. And so that's
Mhm.
something that you've uncovered about yourself, about what creates like a pleasureful dynamic for you.
Mhm. Yeah.
So cool.
Mhm.
I love that. I know there's so many dance nerds out there who would love probably a part 2 on this conversation. We could talk about it for hours.
The flip side is like I'd always been leading before. I'd really been focusing on leading so much, even like the last half year before we met. And then this summer, I've gotten to really allow myself to dive back into the pleasure of following, and the nourishment that that brings. And even having conversations with follows of like, how are you okay with just having like the privilege of just following? When they're like, well, follow and lead as a single circular relationship. Like one can't actually exist without the other. Like someone has to do it. And it's really fun.
Yeah.
um,
So you're enjoying
and
following for now?
I'm enjoying it. Well, I'm very clear, and I'm actually allowing myself the fact that I only like emotionally rejuvenate only from following.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
is really spicy to my like creative and musical brain.
Yeah.
But really to have somebody hug you, to allow that surrender to happen, to turn off the typical thinking brain that I'm using for so much of my daily life. That's a
Absolutely.
beautiful gift. Yeah.
Yeah, because you use your thinking mind all the time. You're in leadership of various projects and people at work all day. And so to be able to turn that off, to get into the body, to allow yourself to surrender, to let somebody else make some of the decisions.
And acknowledging that it's not just like a gift that they're throwing away by giving to me, it's I am also giving to them by being willing to listen to them, by being willing to receive. It's like that is my contribution. Um,
Oh,
I will
girl,
be there with them for that.
that's beautiful. Can you say more about that?
We discussed quite a bit whether it's possible to be a contribution just by existing. And at the beginning, I really didn't believe it. I was like, no one notices me, and I walk into a room and no one cares. Um, but then the fact that I get to like come into social back home in Seattle and people say hi and then people sit down on my table and we have these amazing conversations. Or I come into a social a couple days ago in Munich, completely unfamiliar to me, and I get to reach out to people and ask about their day and then like dance with them. Just the way that I show up, I get to have a positive impact on people. Like it's kind of the thing that it works every time you do it. It's like every time that I show up, good things happen. And
Yeah,
it's a skill in not overanalyzing,
yeah.
when nothing unremarkable remarkable doesn't happen. But
Mm,
it's yeah, that like if I am having fun on my own and I'm open to the people around me who want to interact, then it's like,
yeah. I
yeah.
work with a lot of women who, myself included, who we think that the value that we bring to the table is in what we do and the way that we serve, and really so much of it has to do with who we're being and the energy that we're bringing to the table. People are just magnetized to you when you're having a good time, when you're feeling good, when you're being authentic.
Hmm. Yeah, when you're comfortable with yourself, and a big part of that was having the ability to say no to like
Yeah,
things I'm not comfortable with or things I don't want to do. And people seem to actually respect really often. Like if you just speak up and are like, nope, actually, I don't know,
yeah,
I'm not drinking tonight or whatever, and people are like, okay, cool. Like they don't actually care as much as we think they might. And potentially they respect us even more after we say those clear parameters of like, here's how
right.
you can serve
Because you're
me, you can not.
yeah,
um,
when we
and
respect ourselves, it allows other people to show up with respect because they understand who you are, what you need, what you want.
and it's just not possible if you're not setting the example of what you in a good state looks like. Like, they can't guess that for you.
Exactly. Well said. Well said. Well, Tali, I couldn't be more proud of your work, and it's been so much fun working with you. Um, I want to ask, we're going to start wrapping up here, and I just want to ask, just your opinion. Well, I want to ask you two things. One is, um, if there was somebody listening who was like yourself from 3 months ago, who was wanting to get back into dating, but feeling a little bit shaky about it, who was wanting to make a bigger impact, but feeling like they were burning out, who was wanting to live a life that felt more fulfilling for them. What advices would you offer?
It's very possible. um it is certainly helpful to have an external uh look at it, like having a coach that um can listen to you and acknowledge you and respect everything that you've done so far, and then point out like, okay, these are here's the things that are inconsistent, or like um that are clearly not working, or and ask the questions of like, how do you want things to work, what would be fulfilling, etc. Um, advice. There's a really big I think it's interesting how often we hear the phrase of like follow your heart or do what you want, and then how often we completely disregard this and don't do it because it seems irresponsible. It's like, well, maybe I want to be on a beach drinking a mojito, but I can't drop all of the people I'm responsible for and everything that I'm taking care of. And the point is somewhere in between. Um, that it's like it's not really the beach that you're looking for. It's maybe some peace of mind. It's maybe some silence. It's maybe um the splash of water that you haven't gotten to see in months because you haven't gone on a camping trip. I think that it's really interesting what are our actual dreams, and what are the dreams that we don't even let ourselves have. I really liked the coming up with a bucket list. And the interesting thing were not the actual things on the bucket list, but why they were there. Like really the qualities and kind of details of them that I want to make sure I have in my life. Yeah. So
Right. So sometimes we have a list of 50 things on the bucket list, but when we look at it, there's kind of a trend of what you think that you're going to feel as a result of those things.
I
And
think it's really valuable to be looking at what you really want and allowing yourself to do that with the caveat of what you really want may not be those big crazy things. It might be more adventures, some like spontaneity, etc. But it's really not the things. It's the way we go about them. Um,
absolutely.
yeah, it's a very vague way of putting it.
And so what do you have your eyes on next, like in this next chapter?
Structure.
What do you
Well, with dating, discussed that
Yeah.
I am looking for a husband. Because in the next chapter of like next 5 years, I'm creating a family, um, which I can take care of as much as I love taking care of my colleagues and my friends and the parties I throw, etc.
Yeah.
Um, in the meanwhile, I'm creating a very loving and connected family and friend experience worldwide while having an independent me at work and independent me outside of work. And exploring, step by step, what would I be doing if it's not like we got this. I'm already like financially independent, etc. So what do we do next if it's not whatever I think my family thinks I should do next, but really what do I want to do next?
I love that. So excited for you. Well, is there anything else you wanted to say, Tali, before we wrap up?
Oh, good.
All good. If there was an ideal person who you think would be the perfect fit for working with me, who would that person be, or how would you describe them? I would love to know, in case they're listening.
They definitely have to be someone who's like really on their toes, willing to take ownership of shifting things in their own lives. It doesn't work to have a conversation a week and then do nothing about it. Like it's really boots on the ground. You have to be doing the work, thinking about it multiple times a day. Like it has to be a time in your life when you're really invested um, in seeing things change. Um, and then other than that, you're a really soft coach. So maybe like once a month you'd go mama bear mode and actually point out something like that you're like, dude, here's your blind spot. Come on. But other than that, you're very welcoming and always like nurturing and open whenever we have the guilt and shame show up of like I didn't do this thing, I suck. Your response was always like show up how you are, like just keep showing up. And um that positive reinforcement and that stability helps a lot with opening up and being like, okay, all right, we took 5 steps instead of 100. Let's keep going. Let's take steps 6 and 7.
Yeah. And that's
Yeah.
what keeps the progress alive, right? When we get like stuck in those shame cycles, you have to attend to that with a lot of love. I'm
Mm.
guessing is that what you mean when you say I'm a soft coach? Is I bring love?
Maybe. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a soft tug.
A soft hug. Yeah. So I
As
like,
opposed to like a punch in the face.
yeah, no punching in the face. Yeah. We have to love the fear and we have to love the past pain and the limitations. And that dissolves it sometimes faster.
Mm.
Once we love it, then we can be open to releasing it and then shifting into something new. So we got to bring the love and then, yeah, a little dose of fire too. Good. Oh, I love it. Anything else?
Thank you.
You're so welcome. It's been my absolute pleasure and honor to be by your side. You're such a badass, such a beautiful woman. Your future husband is so lucky. He better be ready.
I can't wait.
I know, right? I can't wait to meet him.
Thank
Cool.
you.
Yeah, well, I'll let you go. Thank you so much for coming on to the show.
Awesome. Have a beautiful morning.
Hi, lovely. Really quick before you go, it would mean the absolute world to me if you found value in today's episode, if you would take a minute to leave a 5-star review for the podcast. This is going to help other powerhouses like you to be able to find it. Also, I love interacting with my listeners, so I would love to know more about what you thought about today's episode. If you take a screenshot and share it to your Instagram stories and tag at Megan W. Taylor, it's going to notify me, and I actually love to reshare your posts with my audience as well. With that, thank you so much for being a listener, and I'm wishing you a beautiful, productive, happy, sexy, lucrative week, and I will see you on the next episode.